Yeah. So we have understood the state in last session. So when you say state, React component re-render itself. And if you want to update the data inside React component, you need to re-render the React component with new data. That is nothing but what the state is. That is nothing but what the state is. When you change the state, it triggers the re-render with the remembered state and the new data. That's what the state management is. Well, there is a one more thing over here, reacting to input with the state. I will cover this part later on, a form handling. So let's move ahead. Choosing the state structure. Choosing the state structure, structuring. Okay, let me clarify why I am doing this thing later. We need to cover forms in much more details. That's why I have kept this thing a little bit aside. And we would be moving ahead to the next topic under the managing state, choosing the state structure. Right, see now, this is important. Whenever you create the state, you need to remember few things. Structure the state well can make a difference between the component that is pleasant to modify and debug, and one is that the constant source of bugs. Structuring state well can make a difference between component that is pleasant to modify and debug and one that is a source of bugs. Here are some tips you should consider. See, principles of managing state. When you write a component that holds some state, you can have to make a choices about how many state variables to use and what the shape of their data should be. How many state variables to use and what the shape of the data should be. While it is possible to write correct programs even with the suboptimal state structure, there are few principles. You need to remember these principles. Group the related state. Don't create a separate variables all the time. Group the state variable in one object. Avoid contradictions in state. Avoid redundant state. Avoid duplication in state. Avoid deeply nested states. Make your state as simple as it can be, but no simpler. Okay. Group the related state means what? If you always update two or more state variables at the same time, consider merging them into one single state variable. So yesterday we have seen what is the state, and now we are understanding the best practices of the state. This is very important. So this session moreover towards the theory, right? So whenever you talk about the state, what that state can be. First, here we have understood what is the state. And now we are understanding how to create the state. What are the best practices in create the state? What are the best possible ways to create the state? Now, when you write the component that holds some state, right, you will have to make choices about how many state variables to use and what shape of their data should be. This is very important. If you have 10 input boxes, so definitely you will create the 10 state variables. That is one way. But this principle says that group related data. If you always update two or more state variables at the same time, instead creating the two state variables like this, CNT1, CNT and CNT1, they should be clubbed together into one JavaScript object. Okay. Consider merging them into the single state variable. Avoid contradictions in state. When the state is structured in a way that several pieces of state may contradict and disagree with each other, you leave room for a mistake. Try avoiding this. When the state is structured in a way that several pieces of the state may contradict and disagree with each other, you leave a room for mistake. Means, so this CNT is saying that CNT value is 1 and this CNT1 is saying that CNT value is 2 and both are related. There is a problem. Yes or no? You are entering the PAN card number and you are entering one number in one state variable and same number in another state variable. There is a problem. Avoid contradictions in the state. When the state is structured in a way that several pieces of the state may contradict and disagree with each other. Several pieces of the state, remember that, may contradict and disagree with each other. You leave room for mistakes. Try avoiding this. Try avoiding this. So you got to know what do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? So whenever you would be creating the state variables, hence from now you need to remember this thing. Okay. Now here, take example of a form. This is the form, or this is a search filter would be one form. So inside that, how many state variables you would be creating over here? Only one state variable with the JavaScript object, this filter. Inside that object, there is a mobile key, bill number would be the key, date would be the key, counter would be the key, cashier would be the key. Right? And the cashier would be the key. Now, whenever you create it would be something like this, const filter set filter is equals to use state, and there would be the object. Mobile, like this, bill number, like this, amount, like this, date, something like this, counter, something like this, and the cashier. Something like this. So instead you create the separate states over here. You can create a one single state object like this. Is that clear? Yes, sir. One example over here I have given, and that's what they are saying. Now, there won't be any contradiction. There would be only one variable to update this filter. There will be only one function to update this filter. And that is nothing but what the set filter is. There is a set filter method that would be updating the filter. Correct? Yes, sir. Any question? No, sir. So we have a state, and second principle, avoid contradictions in the state. Avoid a redundant state. If you can calculate some information from the component's props, or it is existing state variable during the rendering, you should not put that information into the component state. If there is a component function details and something you are getting from the props, you should not write whatever you are getting from the props into the state. If this is the state variable, and something called as amount you are getting from the props, you shouldn't create separate. Now here you can create the amount, no problem, or const. Here we can say const amount. This function name can be absolutely anything. It is not like that you should only write set amount. This variable name can be anything, this function name can be absolutely anything. That is okay. So meaning of that, avoid the redundancy means what? Avoid redundancy means if you can calculate the sum information from the component's props, or its existing state variable during the rendering, you should not put that information in the component state. If you are getting it into the props, means that whenever that component would be getting updated, the props are also getting updated and you are getting the fresh data. So you don't need to put this amt into the state variable. Meaning of this line. Avoid duplications in the state. When same data is duplicated between the multiple state variables or within the nested objects, it is difficult to keep them in a sync. Reduce the duplication when you can. This is very clear, right? Do not maintain the same data in the two state variables. When the same data is duplicated between the multiple state variables or within the nested object, it is difficult to keep them in a sync. Reduce the duplication when you can. This is understandable, right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Give an example of this. Think and give me the example. Hello?
Yes, sir. We cannot give two amounts, same value.
Two amounts, same value means?
Uh, Two amounts variables
Mm-hmm.
in object.
Give me a real time example.
Same the count. We cannot give two counts.
Correct. Same information avoid saving in the two state variables. Avoid saving same information in two state variables. Okay. When the same data is duplicated between the multiple state variables, or within the nested object, it is difficult to keep them in sync. Reduce the duplication when you can. Avoid deeply nested state. Deeply nested state is not very convenient to update. When possible, prefer the structure state in a flat way. Means what now? Means what? What did you understand from this line? Point number 5. What do you mean by this?
Avoid the state in another state.
Means state in another state means
In a count and state count, we cannot add in another state, that is count one or state count one.
okay. Avoid duplication in state. Deeply nested state. See here. Now, this is the initial travel plan. Yeah. Can you see here how nested object is? Now see. Imagine the travel plan consisting of the planets, continents, and the countries. Okay. You might be tempted to structure its saying something like this below. Imagine a travel plan consisting of the planet, continents, and the countries. So initial travel plan, ID 0, title route, child places. Can you see? Object. There is an array. Inside array, there is a ID title earth. Again inside that child places. One child places, again inside the child places. Inside earth, there is a Africa country. Inside Africa, again there is a child places. Can you see? Deeply nested. Hello?
Yes, sir.
How nested JavaScript objects are there? Nesting inside, nested. Right? Now let us say you want to add a button to delete the place you have already visited. So you need to have a delete button here, and you need to delete that visited place. Now let's say you want to add a delete button, delete a place you have already been visited. How would you go about it? Updating the nested state involves making the copies of objects all the way up from that part is changed. So deleting a deeply nested place would involve copying its entire parent place. Such code can be very verbose. If the state is too nested to update easily, consider it making a flat, something like this. Travel initial plan, this is the 0th element, ID 0, title route, child IDs 142, means inside this is the 1 is a child of this, 42 is a child of this, means for this 1, 42, 46. Inside 1 would be again thing, Can you see this thing have been flattened to a single object kind of thing, right? Now there are multiple ways to do that thing. We can do in flatter it in other way also. Now that the state is the flat, also known as the normalized, the updating the nested items become easier. Now they are saying that you want to update this title. Now you need to find out this is a parent, child of whom, and then again child of whom, and you need to go to the top of the hierarchy. So updating this would be little bit difficult than updating this. And that's why the state is a flat, also known as the normalized. So updating the nested items become easier. In order to remove a place, now you only need to update the two levels of the state. The updated version of its parent place should exclude the remove id from its child id's array. The updated version is a root table object should include the, okay, they have given the example of this, you can forget about it, no problem. But what you need to remember about the state while creating the state is these things: principles of structuring the state, group the related state together, avoid contradictions in state, avoid the redundant state, avoid the duplications in state, avoid deeply nested state. The goal behind these principles is to make state easy to update without introducing the mistakes. The goal behind these principles is to make state easy to update without introducing the mistakes. Removing the redundant and the duplicate data from the state helps ensure that all pieces stay in a sync. This is similar to how database engineer might want to normalize the database structure to reduce the chance of bugs. To paraphrase Albert Einstein, make your state simple as it can be, but no simpler. Right? And we have seen these things in the application. So what I suggest you go to this link, and do it, and just revise it once. Hence from now, whenever we would be creating the state, we would be following these principles. I will just rename the folder day 98, day 99. Here we can say React state principles. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yes. Fine then. We'll meet tomorrow with new topic. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.